Welcome. I plan to discuss our homework assignment 1 in class, but I thought a little bit more detailed video as a supplement for you would be nice. And I can go through the 4 different documents I have here. I have a template. That'll be a template for all of our assignments. I have homework 1 data. That's going to be in SPSS. I have Chapter 1 template, so some of you have mentioned that you don't have your textbook yet. It may take a week or so to get it. So this way you don't have to wait on your textbook. But what I'll say is all of our homework assignments are going to follow the templates in the back of our chapter's textbooks, where they discuss the research question template and writing up an APA style, how to write up an APA style report, a short write-up. So we're just going to follow that. Our assignments are going to be very practical research assignments. We're going to do a little bit of analysis, then we're going to write them up in APA format. And then here's the actual assignment. I'll start by clicking on the actual assignment and come back to some of these. This is a location that's going to be called Assignments in Blackboard, and I will copy this video here when I am done under Guide for Homework 1. Here is your assignment. I'm going to be moving back and forth amongst several of the documents, but I'm going to start by showing you the assignment. Homework 1 is based on chapters 1 and 2, one-way Anova, and multiple comparison procedures. We're going to, as I said, follow the use of statistical software and the practical interpretations of writing up an APA style example. Our first element here are just structural. This is what I'd like to see our documents formatted with a title page, page number, methods, results, and an appendix section, as well as what you should title it. Instead of having you guessing or wondering if you did it correctly, what I've done is put together this little document here for you. I'm going to give it a moment to open. Here we go, and I'll enable editing just to make it easier to see for us. And what I've done is I've just structured this template for you for your homework assignment, so you can just fill in, homework assignment 1, fill in the name of the assignment, your full names. This can be you and all of your quote-unquote co-authors, your group members. If you're working on your assignment with 3 colleagues total, you would have all 3 of your names here. And then this is just our method sections, which are going to be very, very brief. A result section, which is sort of the heart of our assignment. And then a short appendix. You can put SPSS or R or SAS, whatever other software you're using. We're going to mostly focus in this class on SPSS, but there are examples for SPSS and R in our textbook. Let's go back to our homework. All right, so this kind of gives you an idea of how you're going to structure your assignment. The first thing you'll see after that is the research passage. The idea is that this puts our research into real context. I talk about Dr. Washington conducting a study, and the primary focus was examining learning environment and intelligence. I give you the operational definitions for learning environment, that they were face-to-face, online only, and hybrid style, and I give you the operational definition for intelligence, the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale. Tell you where this was conducted, that 120 college students were randomly assigned. The where is the college students and who the participants are. And we talk about what Group 1, Group 2, and Group 3 are. I don't want to do the assignment for you, but this is where you're going to get any of the information that you're going to use in your method section. You're just going to pull out of this chapter, this one paragraph right here. Here, I just point you back to the data set. I'll go ahead, and since we're at that point, you can just click here to open the data. I already have it pre-opened, just so it doesn't take as much time to load, but just open it up and save it. Here is your SPSS data set. This is our data view. These are the names of the variables across the top. Here's the actual data within underneath each one of those variables. There's also a variable view. This is a more succinct view. It just gives you the name, the type of data, etc., whether it's scalar. Just tells you a little bit of information about your data. You could also, if you want to, put in value labels here. So you say GPA is grade point average. That's already in there for you, so you don't have to mess with that right now. But here's just the variables that we care about. Obviously, there's more variables here, but we have learning environment and we have our intelligence test. So those will be the 2 variables. our independent and dependent variables that we're going to be using on your assignment. Let me jump back to our actual assignment. All right, so that's your data that you'll be using. The method section here, I expect a very, very brief method section. So when I say brief, I mean you're going to write a sentence basically providing information you know about participants, because this is all that you know about them. What's from in this paragraph. And you're going to write one sentence operational definition for the independent variable and a one sentence operational definition for the dependent variable. They give you that information here when they talk about their independent and dependent variables of for learning and intelligence. They tell you which one through the research question, which one is independent, which one is dependent, and they give you how they operationally define them. For example, I'll just go ahead through intelligence is operationally defined as the Wechsler's adult intelligence scale. So just a short sentence there on each one of those. From the information in the passage, provide a one-sentence research question. So you're going to go through and model the research questions that we have in class, model the research questions from your textbook, and write a one-sentence in plain language research question. Then a brief statement about the statistical test, saying something like you're using the one-way analysis of variance, the levels of your independent variables, that you'll be doing some follow-up procedures. And finally, in symbols, I'd like you to write out the omnibus null hypothesis and the omnibus alternative hypothesis for this analysis. We'll be going over what those are in class. Now, this is really very brief. You're going to have, with the exception of the symbols, you're only going to have 4 or 5 sentences total for your method section. And although that's really brief, that's really the heart of a good method section. So it will give you an idea of how to structure your APA-style method section. Also, even if you say to me, I'm never going to write an APA method section outside of this class, you're probably going to be reading journal articles throughout your career. So this will teach you how to read and what to look for in a method section. We're going to do this. We're going to follow the rubrics in class. And I mean, we're really going to follow strongly those rubrics from the templates that we have in our textbooks for chapters 1 and 2 here when we write up our results for the one-way Anova. We will be using our end of our chapters, in this case chapters 1 and chapter. So for the results section, we start with the one-way Anova. First, we provide results for the one-way Anova, and we do so. We demonstrate we did some proper screening. We'll go over a little bit of that in class. When we do our one-way Anova, we're just always going to look for normality, homogeneity of variance, and independence. And we're going to do a brief, paragraph, a couple sentences, write up one sentence really on each one of those issues. Then we're going to have our second sort of paragraph is going to be structured in APA style. We're going to go over this again in class and in my lecture notes online. Our one-way Anova, and here as well, I'll show you the example. We'll follow up the example from the writing in the back of the book. We're going to mention that we have our F-test, the degrees of freedom and significance value associated with it, the means and standard deviations of the independent variable, the effect size, the power. Optionally, if you decide you want to try and impress me, you can try to conduct some of the alternative procedures and report them as supplemental. You don't have to do this. It's just sort of an extra credit opportunity for you if you want. And then finally, a short paragraph on the multiple comparison procedures. We're just going to do a Tukey's test and just say whether or not there were some of those comparisons were significant and what the means and comparisons were for those. Finally, and maybe most importantly from a practical standpoint, all of your statistical analysis, whether it's in SPSS or R or SAS or any other software package you may opt to use, let's put all of that supplemental information in the back, but don't give me everything. Only give me output that is relevant to the information you're providing. That is, relevant information is very clear. It is, if you're writing about it in your results, then you can add that table or graph or figure in as an appendix. If you don't mention anything from that table, don't put that table or just random code into the end of your appendix. So this gives you a chance to show me if you know, as much as you want the SPSS or R code or our output that you've used. And again, I'm mostly going to focus on SPSS, but I don't want to limit my users here. We also have some support for R in our textbook. All right, I am going to open up. I've opened up the template. We've taken a look at that. We've briefly looked at the data. We'll look at more data in class and through other examples. I'm just going to open up the Chapter 1. This is actually Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 template. I'll go ahead and open that up for us and show you why I'm presenting this to you. Some of you, again, don't have your textbook yet. So I just provide you this. This is a lot of the template information from the back of those books kind of cobbled all into one place. This is all from House, Vaughn, and Lomax. I'm not taking credit for their work. I am showing you some of their work in brief. I just annotated some of their information from the textbook and their template. Writing up a research question. Some of the basic structure for a research question is simply stating there is in a hypothesis structured way, is that there is a mean difference in the dependent variable between independent variables. Well, let's look at the practical example from the text. They ask, is there a mean difference in psychological distress of elite athletes based on the type of sport in which they compete? The type of sport in which they compete has different levels. It is our independent variable, and psychological distress is our dependent variable. So we have a very basic research question structure, and in this way, it's asking, is there a difference amongst these different types of sports? So that's a nice little example there. We can go over other examples in class. It's always helpful to have, as a preface to your results for a one-way ANOVA, also for any sort of factorial ANOVA, ANCOVA, stuff we'll do in the future, the assumptions of that statistic. So here we're just going to make some brief references. We're going to name a one-way ANOVA here. We say a one-way ANOVA was conducted. We tell what it was on. We basically restate some of the research question. Then we say the assumptions of normality were met. We say why. We're going to go over a little bit of the how we get this information out of SPSS. And the assumptions of homoscedasticity and independence were also met. We sort of show those elements here as well in this brief paragraph. We actually add the Levine's test for homogeneity or variance, right here below. The scatter of results show that we have independent variable was reviewed. We'll talk a lot more about that in class. I have a little slightly differing opinion of what it means to have make sure that the levels of the independent variable were reviewed. It's important to me that we have random assignment to groups. When we do, that we should state that. We don't always have that. Sometimes we have naturally forming groups, and when that happens, we should state that as well. And then here is your APA style result. I won't go over this too ad nauseum here because we're going to be doing some of that in our lecture and in some other videos probably. But here we just state the one-way ANOVA was significant. We give the F with degrees of freedom and our significance levels. And we talk a little bit about our Tukey's test here as well as for post hoc procedures. Here I just kind of also patch in for Chapter 2, the end of Chapter 2, our template here as well. And we can go over, well, this is covered both in the textbook and in some of our lecture. We will discuss these as well. And I should mention that this information right here, from about this point on, where we mention our one-way ANOVA, we give a short 3-point write-up. Maybe even you will have even a little bit shorter write-up here about the assumptions. We talk briefly about the significance level of our results. And then the multiple comparison procedures. Some of that actually gets folded in here. So what's here is actually probably a little bit longer than what you're going to report in your findings. But if you notice effect sizes here, I ask you for effect size. Our power, observed power is here as well. So all of those elements that I ask you for in the homework assignment, every single one of them is found in this template. And you might shorten this template up a little bit for your first assignment. All of our assignments are going to follow this. We're only going to have 3 assignments. So basically you're going to have 3 assignments. Each assignment's going to be a short data set analysis you're going to conduct, possibly 2 analysis as we get into chapters 3 and 4, and then a brief write-up of the methods, a brief write-up of the results, and that will be our assignment. I will talk more about that and follow up with that in class.